Jews that wanted to keep the Torah, and the Greeks just jumped in to help the Grecianized Jews. What do we see? Is the Grecianized Jews had adapted to the idolatry of Greece, much like today that both camps, both Judaism and Christianity, have adopted or adapted to Greek things. And we say that, well, it was the rededication of the temple and this and that. Hanukkah isn't so much about the lighting of the lights. It's not about eating the yummy food or getting presents and stuff like this. It's about rededicating ourselves, understanding that the light came into the world to relieve our darkness, and that, like everything else, we examine ourselves at Hanukkah and we dedicate ourselves to it. And this is to say, again, am I eating something that I shouldn't be eating? And if I am, I'm going to rededicate myself to Elohim. So our traditions can lead us astray. We learned that in Rosh Hashanah when we called it Yom Teruah this time, understanding that the commandment was to listen to the voice of the shofar. It didn't have anything to do with Happy New Year. So we really need to pay attention if we're getting involved with things that aren't grounded and established in the word of Elohim. So, doctrines that go contrary to the word. Seduced by Jezebel into remaining as such because it's for my prosperity. Again, she said, yeah, go ahead and do it. You can join the union. You'll be able to make a living without having any problems, instead of saying, I'm not going to join the union, and my Elohim will take care of me to produce. What's the result of this? It says, behold, I will cast her into Arsa. Now, in King Jimmy and all our wonderful English-based Bibles, it says, I will cast her into a sick bed. You've been naughty, go to bed. Arsa is an Aramaic word that means coffin. So we say Jezebel is already sick. She's made no attempt to get better. Medical attention from the great physician has been rejected. Jezebel is going to die and be placed into a dark place. Okay? What happens when we don't keep the word of Elohim? Well, we're out of the light. If we stay out of the light for any period of time, we die spiritually and we end up reprobate in darkness. And he goes on to say, them who commit adultery with her into great affliction. He's going to bring those who commit adultery with her into great affliction. The illness, the spiritual death, and ultimate separation from Elohim, from the light to darkness, still runs through the spiritual veins of those who believe contrary to the word of Yahweh. Teshuvah is the only cure, and it is a total cure, turning away from false dogma, tradition, and ritual, and adhering faithfully to the word. Everybody has the bug. I have the bug. Okay? If we're honest with ourselves, everybody has the bug. We still hold on to things because we haven't gotten to a point where we've studied something to say, oh, well, this part of where my walk is needs to be changed and adjusted. So we're always learning. So basically, we always have a bug, but we're willing to make teshuvah in order to stay out of Arsa. We don't want to go to the coffin where it's dark. We want to continue, I guess, like they say when they're saying, don't go to the light, but we want to go to the light. So, all right. And her children I will slay with death. And that's just really an amazing statement, because how can something be killed with something that's already dead? Consider this: spiritual death fed to those who are young in the word will make them sick with falsehood. They too will die spiritually. The redemption, deliverance, and restoration of Yahweh, Yahshua, will not slay a believer. Everybody catch that? It's there for the believer. The word will not kill us. The word's there to redeem us, to keep us alive, to restore us. So the word brings life through undeserved favor, truth, and spirit. The word of truth canceled out the law of sin and death. Contrary to what everybody has stated that Paul did, it didn't cancel out the entire Torah. It canceled out the law of sin and death. Now, with that being done, we can make mistakes, but we can make teshuvah. False doctrine, ritual, and traditions infect the young believer, and through malnourishment caused by the parasite of this infirmity, causes spiritual death. And this is something, I guess, that we can't really avoid, because in a congregation, young people are going to learn what they're taught. You change what the parent believes, you change what the adult believes, then the young person is going to start making changes. And it's a wonderful thing when a congregation is willing to do that. The offspring of this Jezebel spirit, who continue to teach in this false way, they too will die spiritually, being cast out of the light of Yahshua, Yahweh's redemption, deliverance, and restoration, into darkness. And then it goes on to say, and all of the assemblies will know that I am he who seeks the mind and the hearts. The result of the death of this Jezebel spirit is purity in worship. You will love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul. Yahshua says with all your mind, because he can change it if he wants to. And with all your strength. And he says, I will render to each of you according to your works. Works, the word means things required by, commanded by, and directed by Elohim. Works that are not required for redemption, deliverance, and restoration are the man-made rituals and traditions. Okay? Again, we rededicate ourselves, but we can rededicate ourselves without lighting the candle. Why is Hanukkah not mentioned in Torah? And I think we asked this question, well, the question was asked, why? Why are we celebrated if it's not mentioned in Torah? It's dedication. It's not commanded by Elohim to keep Torah, because he cannot command us to do it. He cannot command us to keep Hanukkah, is what I meant to say. He cannot command us to dedicate ourselves. We have to choose to dedicate ourselves. And we have to be willing to take that light and be a light to the world and do it correctly. So, that's that page. All right. Abraham physically did what Yahweh instructed him to do, and it was counted to in his favor as righteousness. He had to cut up all those animals and line them up, and then he shooed the birds away because Elohim, I guess, got caught in traffic. He was coming from Carrollton. And he fell asleep, and he woke up, and he saw the smoke coming through the fire, or coming through the sacrifices. So Elohim passed through. So it was a way of entering into a covenant that Elohim took the first steps. But Abraham did what he was supposed to do, and it was counted to him as righteousness. Then he goes on to say, to those who have not received this Jezebel doctrine, the men who have not known, accepted, or followed the profound things of Satan, I lay no other burden upon you. Now, in Matthew 11:28, when we yoke ourselves to the word of Yahweh, who is Yahshua, and do not succumb to the ways of the serpent, Satan, our burden is easy. We have tranquility in our souls at the center of Yahshua's heart, which is the word of Yahweh. We have rest in Yahshua. In the Tanakh and in the Torah, it's often referred to as Yasha. You know, we read about Yasha a lot in Torah and in the Tanakh, because it's often talking about redemption, and it's talking about deliverance and restoration. It always uses the word Yasha. So it's in the Tanakh. It's in Brit Hadashah. So we have it. Hold fast until I come. The above phrase, it addresses men. Okay? Man is Ish, the physical side of worship. What Yahshua is saying here is be steady and continue in true worship. Pray, study, and observe the truth of the word of Elohim. Don't be swayed. Okay? Then he says, and to him that is victorious, and to him that observes my words to the end, to him will I give authority over the nations. And I say, well, that's pretty cool. The truth of Yahweh's word must go forward in constant and consistent truth. To the one who holds fast to this truth and does the true works of Yahshua, Yahweh's word, to these will be granted the authority, receiving the Ruach HaKodesh, to go to the nations with the truth of the word. Now, say the rest of it, you can read, I'm just reading the highlighted points, but holding fast to true worship, we receive the authority of Elohim, and we are empowered by him. We read about the crown last time, where we receive crowns if we hold fast. And we found that within the word for crown was the kaf and the het that made up the two different words that spelled koach, that is a word for power. So in the idea of receiving a crown, we will receive the power to be able to go and effectively minister to others according to the word, but we have to hold fast. We can't waver. Then he goes on to say, as I also received from my Father, and this is on the next page, and this is an incredible statement, the same authority that is given to Yahshua to do the aforementioned things, which is to go to the nations, and it talks about with a rod of iron and dashing them to pieces, in other words, to go to the nations and take the judgment of Elohim forward and help people to finally break down and make it to where they can be restored by the potter. That this same authority that is given to Yahshua will be given to the believer that holds fast and sticks to the truth of the word of Yahuwah. The same Ruach that is in the physical manifestation of Yahshua will also dwell in us. Okay? This is Mashiach, the anointing of Yahweh that surrounds us, dwells within, and allows us to do all the things by the strength that we receive. This is why the Father is seeking those who will worship in spirit and in truth. Now, we don't have to wait until the last days. That power we receive now, that we can go forward with the authority of Elohim and the power of Elohim to minister to other people. But again, it's up to them to listen. We cannot force anybody to listen. But what we talked about earlier, conviction, when conviction starts to take hold of someone, then they begin to make teshuvah. Then what we speak forth hits them like a rod of iron, and they are dashed to pieces. Then they can go into the potter's house where Yeshua is inside to receive redemption. Everybody with me? Okay. I will give him the morning star. That's where it says. Everybody's gonna get a little piece of Venus. And Venus is the brightest star. They call it the morning star. So we now receive from Yahshua the authority to bring light to darkness with the light that he gives us. He gives us the brightest thing in the sky at the darkest time of the night. Okay? He gives us the brightest thing from the realm of Elohim for us to be able to take forward to those who are in the darkest parts of their life. It's not an end times thing. We can do that now. Did we discuss why the word end times and last days is used so much in Brit Hadashah? Why did it say, in these last days, these last days, these last days? We read about it all the time. Yahshua is right as far as the last days, because this was the last days of the Levitical system. It was about to come to an end. And I think we did touch on why it came to an end on the 9th of Av in the year 70. That on the 9th, the letter is Tet, that the decision would have to be made whether to seek Yahweh through his word, through Yeshua, or to not. Av, if this came from the house of the Father, or the house of Elohim. Who was the house of Elohim? Who was the house of Yahweh Elohim? What housed this authority? That, again, the perception, 70, to understand that Yahshua came in the authority of the Father to bring us redemption was coming to an end. And in 70 of the 9th of Av, the temple was destroyed. The Levitical system was destroyed forever. He came at a time where Jews could make the choice to believe and receive or to not. And what we find is that for some, they did choose to believe and receive, but for others, they went the direction of what became rabbinical Judaism, the Judaism of today, and they tried to explain everything away and chose mitzvot over the completion or fulfillment of Torah. So, a fulfillment of the Levitical system. Anyway, that was extra. I have also received of my Father the same authority that was given to Yahshua to do the aforementioned things we too will have, and have now if we stand fast to the truth of the word of Yahweh. The same Ruach that was in the physical manifestation of Yahshua will dwell in us, and this is Mashiach, and I think we talked about this. It surrounds us, dwells within us, and allows us to have the strength. I can do all things through Mashiach, who strengthens me, if we believe and receive. All right, down at the bottom of the page. These things says he who has the 7 spirits of Elohim and the 7 stars. 7 stars represent the assemblies and their messengers. The 7 spirits of Elohim, these 7 spirits are before the throne of Elohim, which are identified as the 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne. There's another place that it takes them to trying to identify these with 7 spirits. I can't remember what the prophet has totally escaped me now. They say that there's 7 spirits, is it Isaiah? 7 spiritual manifestations in Isaiah, but in reality, there's only 3. So, is it 3? 3. So, because one has this and this, one has this and this, and one has this and this. So, these represent the 7 lights in front of the throne. There's a difference in having... Oh, let's go. I skipped a page. Skipped the pages. Okay, there we go. Yahweh Elohim is Echad, 1. Everything about Elohim is 1. If we consider the number 7, the number 7 represents completion. 7 is the number of Elohim as he is complete. The number that represents the Sabbath. The Sabbath in turn is a representation of Yahshua. We have to rest in the word of Yahweh, who is Yahshua. And finally, in 7, we see the Zion. It's also called the crowned Vav, and as the 7th letter, it represents the protection, the nourishment, and the rest that we find in Yahshua, the word of Yahweh Elohim. If we are spiritually incomplete, we cannot enter fully into his rest. As for the word spirits, we could go through all of the scripture and find example after example of different manifestations of the Spirit, works of the Spirit, gifts of the Spirit. Yet in the end, we find that all of them, all these positive spiritual manifestations, come from one Spirit, which is the Ruach of Yahweh Elohim. Now we read about negative spiritual manifestations as well. These negative spiritual manifestations, we have to understand that we also read in the epistles that Satan and his demons can disguise themselves as ministers of light. So we have to be able to, as Paul says, discern between spirits, which is from Elohim and which is not. What is falsehood and what is truth. Okay? Revelation 4:5 tells us lamps of burning fire, something that brings light through the burning fire. Yahshua is the light of the world, and dwelling within him is the spirit of Mashiach. Yochanan the Immerser said, as John the Baptist said, that the one coming after him who would immerse with the Ruach HaKodesh and with fire. Fire will clean away impurities, making any vessel truly clean. For the Spirit of Yahweh to make a permanent residence within our vessel, it has to be truly clean. And again, when the Spirit begins to bring conviction, we have to listen. And the more we listen, the cleaner we get. The seven spirits of Elohim is the completion that comes through the burning work of the Ruach and the peace that is found in Mashiach. And these two are one spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh. One who has the seven spirits of Elohim, he's not holding them in his hand. He has them. So within the word of Elohim is the Ruach and Mashiach. They are one and inseparable. This is why truth is so important. If we can't grasp the word in truth, we cannot receive the fullness of the Ruach of Yahuwah. We can get bits and pieces of the Ruach, but if we cannot grasp the word in truth, we cannot receive the fullness of the Ruach. Again, it goes back to word learning. We still have that gook in our veins, but the gook in our veins comes out as we build our relationship and our walk with Elohim. We're able to hear the Spirit, experience the Spirit, and because of that, make the adjustments in our life that gives us the detox that we drink. It's a very nice tea. I like it, but anyway. Okay. He says, I know your works. What we do is known to Elohim. What we do is known to Elohim. In Thyracia, we saw that Yahshua had eyes of fire that penetrate our deepest parts. He knows our works. Then he says, you have a name that you live. The Greek translation says that you are alive, which really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Of course they're alive. He's talking to them. Aramaic says, a name that you live. And in this phrase, we see a reflection of superficiality about to surface. Are you attached to the name simply to show that you are part of a group, or do you live your life according to who that name represents? Okay? So there's an important thing to hold on to, that are we part of a group? Are we attached to the name so we can be part of a group, or do we live our lives according to what that name represents? But then he goes on to say, yet you are dead. Simply going through the motions because the Bible says is not what is written because Yahuwah says. We have a difference, that we have the law of Moses as opposed to the Torah of Yahuwah Elohim. Well, they're the same. Are you going to do it because it's the law of Moses? Or are you going to live by it because it's the Torah of Yahuwah Elohim? That's a big difference, because if we are going to live because, or do it because it's the law of Moses, then, well, we can add to it, we can modify it, we can do whatever we want. If it's the instruction of Yahuwah Elohim, then it's pretty much written in stone, 2 of them as a matter of fact, that we're required to live by. So, that's why it says, yet you are dead. This is not obedience to him. There is no spiritual life within. There's no connection to Yahuwah Elohim. There's no relationship. There is a difference in having a name that you live and living according to the name. To truly worship, we must do so in spirit and in truth. Anything other is not worship. It is not a walk with Yahuwah Elohim. It is not a relationship. And it says, awake and preserve the things that remain which are about to die. Now, there's one to listen to. Awake. Wake up. There's something there that's about to die. It says, wake up, pay attention, get in touch. Pergamos and Thyatira, we learned about truth or the lack thereof. Ephesus, we learned that we needed to go back to where we had fallen and turn things around. But now it's time to make application. If you want a relationship, wake up, because the fire is going out. It goes back again to asking, where do I dwell? Am I willing to make changes inside of my own house to accommodate a full-time resident? I expect the spirit of Mashiach, the Ruach of Yahuwah, then that house has to be cleaned out. The spirit of Mashiach, the things that are left uncared for, these things are about to die. I have not found your works complete before my Elohim. This is what Yahshua is saying. So knowing the truths of Elohim is one thing. Applying them to our lives is another. One without the other is not completion. Now, the Hebrew word for complete is tamim. If we look at Bereshit 1:1, we understood from our studying that we're attaching ourselves to the covenant. Heavens would be reattached to the earth. And we understood that this would occur through the word, through the Aleph and the Tav. This attachment would bring humankind back to the completeness it had when it was created. We have to have spirit as well as truth to be complete. And if we look at the phrase through the Aleph and the Tav, the heavens, we have et hashamayim. If in this Hebrew phrase we were to drop out the Aleph, the Hey, and the Shin, what we would have left is the word tamim, which means complete. The word that we would the word that we would create, dropping out the Aleph, Shin, and the Hey, is Asha, which means woman. So what are we looking at? If we understand that Asha, again, woman, Isha, is the spiritual component of Adam, then we understand that to be complete is to have more than just the truth or the physical act of worship. We must have spirit, and in order to have spirit, we must function in truth because we believe and receive the word of Yahweh, who is Yahshua, out of love and out of reverence, not because the book says so. This is going from the Levitical priesthood into, again, Melchizedek. We're not doing it because we have to, under the penalty of death. We're doing it because we want to out of faith, and it's counted to us as righteousness. So remember, therefore, what you have received and heard, and observe those teachings and turn back. So remember, bring back to your thoughts of what you have received and heard, what was taught by Yahshua and his apostles. He taught relationship and the importance of building a relationship with the Father by the example set by the Word that was manifested in the flesh. Yahshua taught the Shema and about the importance of loving our neighbor as ourselves. If we observe these teachings in order to be obedient to the Word of Yahweh, then it's counted to us as righteousness. Then we go down to the bottom of the page, where it gives us examples of those who walked in righteousness. Noah walked with Elohim because he was righteous. Now note that he was righteous in his generation. His generation was really, really bad, so it really didn't take a whole lot for him to be righteous. But nonetheless, he walked righteously, and Abraham and Elohim said, hey, build an ark. Elohim called Abram and said, walk with me and be complete. Moses, warning the children of Israel not to stray, says, be complete before your Elohim. And then we have examples of David, Solomon, as well. But they all say, walk with Elohim and be complete. So it's very important that we walk in truth in order to do this. So we have examples of righteousness and completion all through the Scriptures. And these are our true examples. It's full of stories, but it's full of stories that tell us how these people walked in righteousness before Elohim. So he says, he that is victorious. Now we always hear, I'm having a victory, or we're going to get the victory. What is getting a victory? Walking with Elohim is the victory. Walking with Yahweh Elohim in our day-to-day, according to his word, is the victory, and it requires effort. Then he says, clothed in white robes. To be complete is to be clothed as such. Contrary to popular belief, it can be done during our lifetime. We don't have to die and go to heaven and get little wings and a little halo and get handed a harp and put on white robes. We do it while we're alive. We receive the white robe while we're living. It's something for us to continue to work towards. And I will not blot out their name from the book of life. What this book represents is that we are always remembered by Yahweh Elohim, and we are written in his heart. This occurs during our lifetime if we are ready to walk in him. You can't get written in the book of life once you're dead if you haven't done what you're supposed to do while you're alive. And that's an important important thing to remember. And I will confess their name before my Father. To walk with Elohim is to walk in truth and not accept anything other than truth from his word. To not compromise on truth is to not be ashamed. And Yahshua said, if you're ashamed of me, then I will be